What's up, fam? It's NFT culture. We got Rob. We got the whole crew here, really. We got Rob, we got John, we got Malachi, and we have the team from OP Games and the Arcadians. Welcome, guys. How are you?
Thank you for having us
Hey
back,
guys.
guys. Appreciate that. Pretty good actually. We're actually still doing our drop right now, so it was a very hectic yesterday and like a day before yesterday, but things are smoothing up a little bit, so that's a good thing. But
We're
gas
glad
is
to
still
have.
up, so yeah.
We're excited to have you back, Chase. Welcome back, man. And Rick, welcome for the first time. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. I'm excited. Pinch hitting for Paul, who was here the last time. He said we're having fun in Lisbon. So you got me.
I love it. We'll have you any day.
Yeah, absolutely,
Rick. So Chase, did you guys have some sleepless nights and some long hours leading up to the drop, which is now live?
That I'm sure the developers have had a lot of sleepless nights and long hours. I stayed in solidarity with them. That's one thing. But during the drop, we sort of like have we kind of gathered in this thing called Gather Town. Everyone is remote anyway, right? So basically we're talking about like how watching the drop sort of like go up, people minting after another, and that's kind of like what we were doing. Like Rick was there, Paul was there, everybody was there. That's kind of like, okay, is there going to be a problem? Is there going to be a bug somewhere there on the mint button? Like all those things are kind of like happening, and we're like, well,
Watching the load and hoping Infura doesn't go down.
yeah, but it is what it is. That's exactly how the drop goes. Like everybody was nervous, everybody was excited, but at the same time, we're like, okay, this is cool. We've raised a substantial amount of money now, which is great because 100% of that will go back to our game developer partners anyway, and to open source game engines. So the more the Arcadians get supported, the more these beneficiaries would get supported as well. So like,
Yeah, we're not keeping any of the money.
And I think that's awesome. That's like buying the first in-game asset with you guys, with the Arcadians, and it's just going to continue to expand the metaverse that we can play in, and your token will, I mean, the asset itself will continue to be able to play in multiple different levels and games. That's what's so cool about it.
exactly.
I just picked up
Also gonna
3.
be-
You just
also
bought
gonna be
3?
access
Yeah.
You just picked up 3.
He sold me when he said we have fundraising. I'm like, oh, okay. Like they don't need the token. They this is icing on top. Let's go.
Dude, nice job, brother. Nice
yeah,
job.
Yeah. I mean, like everybody will thank you for that, quite honestly. Like every part of the community who's actually bought into the project. We're definitely going to have a lot of things in store for the Arcadians in general. Like right now the dev team is building a game around it. It's on I don't even want to say it's alpha, right? It's version 2 or something. Like it will be many versions before it becomes sort of like really optimized. But the bones are there. And what we're trying to do right now is sort of like, okay, get these Arcadians to the hands of as many people as possible, because by tomorrow it's going to be the reveal of the entire collection, at least those that are minted, in a way.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, and it's one of those things like I like, I'm having fun with these types of projects where, eventually we're going to reach a point where people will expect early access or a complete game before they're going to mint the token. But right now I'm having fun picking projects. Like y'all know, I talk about it quite a bit. I've been a fan of this. I think your art is some of the best pixel art, not only for NFT games, but just period. Just coming from, I'm actually replaying Final Fantasy IV right now, and they did the remastering.
Wow.
I play Crypto Raiders every single day, and it's fun to just watch it slowly evolve. And it's cool that you guys have. I think with your team and what you guys are doing, you're going to be moving in different and unique directions. But I really appreciate like the quality of the art that you've put together. And I was waiting on the mint, and then today just got away from me, so I wasn't able to hop in. So as soon as I was like, okay, I'm gonna go get 3.
I just got 2. I just got 2.
Yeah, thank you. Well,
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
so yeah, go ahead.
The
Rick.
art team made enough parts for maybe 20,000 unique avatars, so we have no idea what's going to come out other than the unique Arcadians that we built for our partners, for Josh Blaylock, for for Phaser, for Default, they've all got individual arcades
Yeah,
that
like
we
special
built
arcades.
for them.
Like
But they didn't, we didn't give it to them because they didn't actually want to have direct association. So we're giving it to the community. It's somewhere in the drop. If you get it, you'll have a unique avatar, and that's going to be an ultra rare.
Oh, that's
Oh wow!
awesome.
That's cool.
So your partners, you made the avatars for the partners, but you're just dropping them. Somebody can mint them.
somebody can
so
mint
there
them.
you go.
Yeah, it could be
Cool.
Rob.
Cool. It could be Malachi. We just got some.
It could be
All right.
Malachi, right? Or it
Yeah,
could be me.
we've got like a 0.0005 chance of being us with the two we have. But it's cool because you've already sold 2688 according to OpenSea. This is the thing that people don't talk about very much. Is it's like, do you price things in ETH or do you price things in fiat? Well, once ETH crosses $4,000, everyone goes back to pricing it in fiat.
Exactly.
So it's interesting to say like, oh, you're an ETH maxi until you want to cash out
Until
some
it
of your
reaches
ETH.
a certain amount, right?
Yeah,
But yeah, it's really cool though. Like I mean, like there are some hitches like today specifically with the gas price going up. When we did our whitelist sale, it was fairly smooth, like smooth as butter, like no issues. Gas was really cooperative. But today, in a way, like a lot of the friends like that I know were like, "Well, Chase, we're waiting a little bit, early tonight before we start minting, just because we still like want to save on gas in a way." But that's going to be open for the next couple of days anyway, and there will be more partnerships that are going to be announced in the next couple of hours. And so, like hopefully, we get to raise more for our partner game devs and partner game engines and the accelerator program that we're going to be tackling in the next couple of weeks as well, because it's probably going to be the first program that's really very technical based. So like like how accelerators would go like, oh, okay, here's how you fundraise, or here's how you do things, how to talk to investors, whatnot, right? This one is completely different though. Like it's more like here's how you sort of like work with our Unity SDK or with our HTML5 SDK, moving it to your Phaser built game, right? So it's more technical, so that it's much easier for them to actually move over from Web 2 to Web 3. And I think at some point we'll get back to you guys and sort of like hopefully get to talk to you guys again about like the details of the accelerator for game developers that are watching, or for enthusiasts that wanted to sort of like build a Web3 game that will help enable.
That's incredible. It's interesting. I'm learning a lot just through friendships and getting to know the complications of like Solidity by itself. Like people tend to say like, oh, Solidity devs make all this money, but like the real value is in the middleware. It's like how do you make and like to keep it simple, how do you keep something like Phaser, and how do you make it actually interact with Web3? How do you make Unity interact with Web3? And like that's where the magic actually needs to happen. And a lot of people are like, oh, this or this, and then it's like there is this unique spot. So the fact that you get, and when you look at the open source engines that you're using, when you look at the communities that you're involved in, and you look at kind of the thought process here, if you can make a project that can make it easier for that interaction layer to do what it needs to do, this is going to affect a lot more than the Arcadians.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's one of the reasons why we're like, okay, a lot of developers will probably not go to us, right? Like in terms of like, oh, okay, like Chase and Paul, you guys, we've been developers and publishers for a very long time. Rick has been in gaming much longer than I have. So in a way, we understand the struggle, specifically for game developers. But now that we're like in a different situation, we sort of like wanted to sort of like also spread what's going on right now in Web3 and how it could potentially change how they make games, change how they build games. And we cannot just expect them to actually like knock on our doors and say, hey, Chase, how can we do this? In fact, you have to go closer to them. And that's kind of like the reasons why we've tied up with Phaser, with Godot, and with the other game engines, to sort of like see if what can we do to work with them, and what can we do to actually be closer to the community, so that they have an easier time moving over from Web 2 to Web 3.
That's really interesting. And we talked before the show that I have to drop soon, but you guys are going to be going into tokenomics, which is I'm silly and don't know anything about. But one of the things what I love about your approach is that it's interesting. You're going where the developers are, right? Like people, just like you're an ETH purist or maximalist, you're a Bitcoin maximalist. Now there's Cardano Maxi's not going to make it. Joking, everyone, it's
Throwing shade.
no. John does it all the time. I thought I'd throw one for him before I hop off. But hey, I love Polygon for a lot of this stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if you guys bring that up at some point in the future, just because of some of the scalability that comes with it. But what I like about your approach is that when you think about going to a default phaser, Godot, Unity, whatever, you're making it easier for the person that's comfortable in that technology to access Web3. So instead of saying you have to use this engine and learn this middleware, you're saying, hey, we're going to make it accessible for everybody, and we're going to fund this. And a lot of people aren't thinking that way. And so I just want to say before I have to hop off that I'm appreciative that you're not thinking about just the phaser community getting into Web3. You're thinking about, it doesn't matter if you're really good at programming in this language, why can't we provide a vehicle for you to get into this? So I just want to commend y'all for that. I'm very impressed by that.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean that's the philosophy all throughout anyway. Like not just like on the whole game engine thing, but everything that we build in general is going to be open sourced, so that it's going to be much easier for existing whatever it's NFTs or games to derive value to something that's currently new. In a way, like anything that's buildable would actually provide more value than just making something new all over again and just like creating different standards over and over and over again that just muddles the whole sort of like ecosystem. And that's
were
kind of like
talking
our
with
approach.
we were talking with our partnership team recently, and it came up that there must be gigabytes of really good HTML5 games sitting in people's hard drives that were never discovered just because it's so hard to discover HTML5 games in the wide internet. And then there are the mobile games that were built in Unity that, again, nobody ever saw because Apple Store and Google Play, it's almost impossible to find a good game there because of the gatekeeping of Apple and Google. So, what part of the mission is for us to help bring these games that were maybe underappreciated back then and bring them to Web3 and build communities around them that enjoy those games. So, in that way, we not only bring the developers into Web3, we also bring the games that never really saw the light back then, into Web3 for people to rediscover.
That it's funny because you can go back and it happens generationally with like some of my favorite games were silly flash games that I played in the early 2000s, and like there's this, when you think of emulation, right? Like everyone wants to emulate the early NES games so that they exist, so that there's a record that it happened. But like this middle period of time we just lost out on in terms of a lot of flash games. I know people are going and finding them, but then you also make it now where, and we're going through a little bit of this with NFTs, is like, we love the idea of DeFi and we love the idea of removing curation. And then we immediately demand curation for all of our art. And it's interesting to see like, the Googles and the iOS and those types of things, the curators of all these brilliant games. And so, hopefully like this fund can bring some of that ingenuity and that thought up so that some games, some creative people that weren't able to do something in a controlled area can do something neat with this. So I'm really optimistic, and once again, just the fact that you're reinvesting in the community is really exciting for me.
Yeah, same with us actually. Like I think it all comes down to sort of like just being in their shoes at some point, and that kind of like really sort of like rings a huge amount of sentiment on my end, because back in the days as well, right? Like as a games publisher, like I can only at least invest in 15 games at the maximum per year, and I review like I'd say 200 or 250 games per year, and not all of them are actually going to sort of like get published at some point. Like in a way, like every time I think about it, like, am I responsible for crushing the hopes and dreams of some young, really cool, amazing developer who has really good game, but just doesn't fit the business model of like how greedy game publishing is in general? And the answer is like probably yes. So this is probably one of my ways to atone for my sins. Um, but we see this as a net positive, not just for us, but also for the entire community. Because without them anyway, we're not going to be here. And so it's just really important for us to invest in them, because that sort of like would carry us through in the next year or so in creating all of the stuff that we're building for them.
It's really interesting, and I'll make this final point, and then you can actually talk about the project. Is that when you think about, and I've used this analogy a lot recently on stream, but it's worth reiterating and regurgitating. You know, I was talking to Mark McKenna, the artist, Marvel and DC last week, one of the most popular comic book artists of the 90s and 2000s, and I asked him because. DC Comics sent Jose Delbo a cease and desist order. They sent Boss Logic, and like these are artists that are literally contractors to create art of the most well-known like IPs in the entire world by the biggest companies in the world, and they can't even make money on their own off of it. Yeah. And everyone is like crapping on Disney and DC and all of that. And I look at it and I'm like, yeah, I'm still going to take my kid to see the next Marvel movie because that's what he wants. But what really excites me is the fact that like the next Disney, the next superhero, the next billion-dollar IP is going to be in the NFT space. And it's going to come without that control that these huge corporations have. And then I doubled down on it, where I'm now thinking like, hey, wait a second. You know, everyone's like, what's the first AAA studio that's going to create NFT gaming? And I'm like, they're not. Like, my new hypothesis is that, like, a AAA game studio is not going to do it. You know why? Because, like, they're just as rigid. And all the stuff we're seeing, you know, John and I hack and slash nonstop. Rob and I used to play StarCraft. But all the stuff that happens with Activision, Blizzard, and all that type of stuff, like, they're so ingrained into what the shareholders think that, like, by the time AAA games want to enter into the NFT space, all of their top devs, all of their top artists, everyone will already be here because we're early in this space. And like, they're so rigid that like, we shouldn't be like, when is Ubisoft going to make an NFT game? And actually they're working on one, but like, it's barely there. So it's like, let's not wait for our legacy institutions to come in and make it. Like, let's encourage talented people to create that, because Tom Billieu and the team have talked, but like Tom Billieu talks about like he wants to create the next Disney, and like people are like, that's crazy, you can't do that. And then you think about it and it's like, well, like NFTs are this unique lightning in a bottle experience to say, it may not be Tom Billieu, but he's well funded and he's got a lot of money. He's got a good chance, but it's going to be someone. There's going to be the next massive studio that's built out of NFTs. There's going to be the next gaming studio. So why can't it be OP Games? Why can't it be games like the Arcadians? Why can't it be a community that is all inclusive? So I go on a rant, but I'm going to shut up. I have to go to my kid's baseball game now, but now you can actually talk about the Arcadians. So it was nice to see everyone, and I can't.
It's pretty cool. Thank you so much, Malachi.
I can't wait to have you guys back on. All right.
Yeah. We all echo that sentiment. That's actually a really, really good sentiment from Malachi. I appreciate that. And that's kind of like what we are anyway as well. Like when we started sort of like doing this back in 2017, 2018. It was just a pipe dream. I mean, that it kind of still is, right? Like, there's still a lot of like pushbacks and a lot of like regulatory sort of like issues that could arise potentially on digital assets at some point. But nothing's stopping us right now. Like, things are well, the bull market is here. You can be as crazy and as radical as you can in terms of like whatever it is you want to build. So I think we'll continue doing that.
Cool.
And that's badass.
Since Malachi's gone, I got to go on a diatribe here for just a second. Still ready to hold the mantle. Malachi mentioned earlier, like the project expectations are changing and they're evolving for people. And, right now you can launch an NFT before the game's ready and it sells out, right? If the idea is promising, it'll sell out. But what people don't realize is that the fact that it's evolving or might not be this way in the future is not necessarily a good thing, right? You as a retail investor, or just as retail in general, you don't have access. This stuff has been going on for a while. You just don't have access to it. And so the key is to be able to spot a good team and a good idea and be an angel. Everybody has a chance to be an angel right now and to be on the ground floor of things that are incredible. And so, we may come to a day where this opportunity isn't around anymore, where teams decide to build out further, and then the upside or the value is extracted before any other else can get in. So I encourage everybody watching to take advantage when teams come in front of you and it looks like they have something that's promising and they can deliver, take advantage of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, with that, Chase, I'm excited to learn more about the Arcadian stuff and how the drop went.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see if you're able to see some gameplay, or I remember we saw some screenshots last time.
Yeah.
But that's exciting for me if you're able to do anything like that and bring it up, man.
Yeah. Well, so like the team is like right now working on a game that's sort of like an auto chess. Not an auto chess ish kind of like inspiration. It's currently on, I'd say, version 1.2, and we're likely gonna see maybe until 1.20 as a matter of iteration for the game to actually be completely acceptable on a publishing perspective and a development perspective. But I could go ahead and show it to you guys just to sort of like see how it looks like right now.
And I thought also with how you're developing it, you can bring in other tokens, other assets as well, like the kitties and things like that, right?
Yeah, you can.
It'll pick up anything in your wallet.
Yeah, as long as it's in your wallet, you can pick it up. So it's kind of ridiculous sometimes. So every once in a while, like I do have like tickets from NFT.NYC from a few years ago, like the first NFT.NYC. So put in my wallet there, and it's basically a kitty, an Arcadian, and an entrance ticket. Hammering away against another 3 characters that's on the game at the moment. So we'll that takes a lot of refinement, and the balance is still going to be a very, very important topic to talk about. And yes, Avigochi, we can bring that in.
There you go, John. You heard it here.
And DRC 721 or 1155 NFT in your wallet.
As long as it's in your wallet, we'll try to make sure that we actually bring them all over. The gameplay, the stats in itself will not be on the NFTs. What we're thinking about right now is that we probably would have initial sets of stats that you can choose from, or like initial sets of abilities that you can choose from, that you can delegate to the NFTs that's going to be played in the game, so that in a way there's still going to be balance, as opposed to a very, very chaotic bring your own stats kind of like delivery where it's just going to be super crazy once that happens. So it's going to be a really cool thing once we've fully completely developed that.
Yeah, Chase, I don't think you were on last time when I mentioned this, or maybe you were, but you guys could make it like one of the old piano bars where, like, if you want your theme song played, you tip the most. So, like the various communities, if they want their NFTs to have the best stats, they gotta tip the platform the most, so they're the most dominant in the various games.
I mean, that's really cool. Like, I think that's part of like what Rick is speaking about as well on the staking side of things. Like,
all right,
we're all gonna be beat up by the bored apes, man.
That's right. The whales, the apes. Unless the punks decide to come in, then they have a run for their money.
So then they can throw down.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's gonna be a throwdown, punks versus apes, though, right? Like, so that's gonna be amazing, though. And like the reason why we're doing that is because like it all boils down again to like composability, right? Like the moment that you lend utility to any of these things, like it kind of like widens your network. It's the network effects that gives you the ability to not only prosper on the Arcadian side of things, but also to like really coexist with the others that have been there ahead of you in the last couple of weeks or months or even years, for example, with the punks. So that's kind of like what we're going for right now with the Arcadians, and hopefully that's what the other game developers in our platform would also think about once they sort of like make their game and their presence known into the OP Arcade side of things, because we're only going to be one of the many games that will be available there. And one of the pushes that I want to make sure is that I want to sort of like talk to other game developers in the platform and say, hey, work with Arcadians, because these are cool stuff, and we'll make sure that it gets playable not just in our auto chess game, but also with the other games that are going to be available soon.
Cool. I hate to be the simpleton, for lack of better terms here, because Malachi was so eloquent earlier. But if I understood correctly, if you built an HTML5 game years ago and it just didn't take off, or for whatever reason didn't pick up steam, you guys are basically going to have the ability to, port that code right in and fire it up, give those developers everything they need to just bring it right on board to your platform. Is that right?
That's correct. So there's plenty of sort of like ways as to how that can be done, at the very least on the OP game side of things. The cool thing about what's going on right now with Web3 is that the expectation of monetization is completely different from how it works in Web2, right?
Yeah.
If you look into games publishers in general, or like hyper casual or casual games in general, they usually look at stats like, day one retention, is it good? What's the cost per install for each of these games, for example? And if you don't meet any of those expectations, you're like literally cut. So any of your like prototype that you've been working on for a very long time, no matter how cool it is, if it just doesn't fit on the levels of user acquisition, on the retention rate of a free-to-play game, you're not gonna make it. I mean, yeah, that's just how it is. But the cool thing about blockchain in general, in crypto, is that that's kind of like not the number one priority. Like, we build a community around the game. You create sort of like a couple of NFTs that are going to be playable in the game. And you would see games like Axie, for example, whose day one retention is almost 100%. Like, the moment you have an Axie, you're probably going to be there for I don't know, like a year or so, or even more, right? And so it's completely insane how the paradigm has shifted from how free to play works versus how play to earn works, and that's kind of like the reason why any kind of so some people are asking, so you're basically taking trash game and bring them over to the blockchain? Answer is not, right? The only reason why people say it's trash is because publishers say it is, because it's not making them money, which is completely different from being a really wonderful and cool game.
It's usually the opposite.
It's usually the opposite, right? You're not making money because you're too cool for them, right?
Yeah, you find ways to extract value from the user base, and then it hampers the gameplay itself, and all sorts of bad decisions.
Yeah. So a lot of times, like, there are plenty of cool games that doesn't get published, not because they're terrible in terms of gameplay. It's just they're terrible for the Web2 business model. It's just how it is. And I think Web3 is sort of like changing that in a way, and I think it's a really, really good paradigm shift for most of these game developers who's open to the idea of working with NFTs, of working with crypto in general, and working with a different type of player base, where they don't necessarily have to look for that 1 or 2% of whales within the free to play gaming environment. Because typically you would have, like, I don't know, like, from the thousands and thousands of players you have, only 1% or 2% of them are paying players.
Yep.
The rest are just basically, it's a free game, I'm gonna play it, I'm gonna watch some ads, and I'm gonna uninstall you, right? But on the blockchain, it's completely different. Like, there's a whole lot of skin in the game. There's a whole lot of commitment involved. Once a player gets into your game, and you really have that ability to personally connect to your community, that's via Discord, or via however it is that you want to connect with them. So that's what's really cool about that. And HTML5 games are one of those games that are kind of like neglected right now in terms of like monetization. So they're more than welcome to actually move over into including play to earn blockchain crypto elements into their games. And we're just basically enabling that to happen for them. But it's still going to be their decision in terms of like how they want to move forward with it.
Man, that's awesome.
That's amazing.
Chase, did you want to pop up some of the Arcadians?
Yeah,
I want to see. Yeah, that's what
all
I
right.
want to hear.
So I couldn't share my screen, right? Like,
yeah. Go ahead and click share, and then I'll throw it on there.
Okay, share. And not window.
So while he's popping that up there, Rick, I can't let you sit idle. He mentioned about the basic introducing potential play to earn mechanics in games. So what is your role for the folks watching? What are you doing?
My job is tokenomics. So
Tokenomics.
how my job is to figure out how all of the tokens will work in the ecosystem of OP Arcade. So that includes both the NFTs and our eventual ERC20 token. So to everybody who asked me in the Discord, when is the token gonna come? There will be a token. We're not ready to announce it yet, but if you're in our Discord, you'll be one of the first to know when we do announce it.
Awesome. So you got to worry about all the game theory behind the token, right? How does it impact this? You have the nightmare job, sir.
Well, I don't know nightmare. It's fun trying to figure out how to balance everything and stay away from the SLP problem that Sky Davis has been trying to address for the past 6 months. But it's an adventure, and I originally came into Web3 via DeFi, so I've been every kind of yield farm known to man.
All
I've
right.
lost a lot of money on native reward tokens going from $1,000 in the case of this one project on Avalanche, all the way down to like $8. And then I've been studying how Olympus DAO has taken Ohm from $8 to now $1,000.
Are you an Omi?
I wish I was. Unfortunately, I didn't make it. So, but it's an interesting case, and what interests us is the 96% staking rate.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the things we're studying, and we'd like to implement in our ecosystem.
Cool.
And the other thing, of course, is that I've been keeping a close watch, and I've been participating in Star Atlas, which is a major. So, well, the team there says they're building a AAA game on the Solana blockchain. So I've been over there, and I've been spending time looking at the project. And one of their tokenomics advisor is also our tokenomics advisor. So we're looking closely at all of the best possible ways to build an ecosystem to make it sustainable and to make it beneficial to our entire community, both the developers and our players. So it's a huge and okay, but I'll let Chase do the blow by blow what he's showing.
That's badass.
Are you guys seeing this now?
Yeah, this is good.
Okay, so let me just try to go back and see how it would look like, right? So the goal is to have all of these options available for you based on what's on your wallet. So you literally connect to MetaMask or whatever your wallet is, and all of these Arcadians, all of these characters would appear. Like I think in this case, we do have some Arcadians. We do have some NFT dungeon characters, and there's a couple of moonshot bots actually, like in this specific sample, right? And the goal here is right now, all of these skill tree here, like the power, the HP, the mana, all of these things will only be rendered to the NFT once you're in the game. But outside of the game, obviously the metadata is not going to be there, at least on the skill side of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so all you should basically need to do is to pick whichever NFT you want to use. Let's say this ghost, for example, and maybe this NFT dungeon guy right here. I think that we're still debating in terms of whether it gets automatically assigned or whether they get to get an option as to what kind of skill they can assign for each of these specific characters. And then once you've decided on what you want to do with it or what you want to assign to them, you can go ahead and play it. Now here is where it's just basically an automatic battler at the moment. We're thinking of putting something that you can actually use to release skills in general. But these are all those things that is still in development at the moment. But I think right now, in terms of how the game would look like, it would be either a 3 versus 3 or a 4 versus 4, or in the case of Dota Auto Chess, it's 6 or 7 characters in total. So and it's not going to be limited to only just Arcadians. It would be for all that NFT that will somewhat integrate slowly but surely into the game itself. Because why not, right?
But of
and
course,
I lost.
Will be OP in the game.
So there you go. I lost, but that's kind of like how the game looks like right now.
It looks fantastic. Looks awesome.
Yeah, that's the most gameplay that I've seen from any of these projects that we've been interviewing their project teams.
Yeah.
The gameplay you guys have actually active right now. That's cool.
It is.
The best part is like you get to imagine what happens when all the various communities come into this game with the various NFTs.
We're gonna let them vote. Yeah, we're gonna let them vote on what kind of abilities their avatars will have. At least that's what I want to happen. The dev teams argue. We'll get there.
Yeah, I mean, like, voting for abilities sort of like on the DAO side of things would also be like a really good engagement in a way. So you can actually cycle down abilities like on I'd say like a seasonal basis. So let's say, for example, like season number 1, these are the available abilities that you could potentially use, right? And then, the DAO can vote again after the season ends, and, sort of like newer gameplays could emerge. And newer sort of like abilities could potentially be available. So, there's plenty of like really cycles of changes that could potentially happen to each of the avatars that are using in the game itself. I think that's going to be a cool thing as well.
Y'all ever seen those commercials or YouTube snippets like what happens when a bear meets a crocodile, and they're fighting? Like now what happens when an ape meets a CryptoPunk? It's like the same.
Find out.
Same principle.
Yeah, it's really cool to see how the community would respond to this one, and not just like the player community, obviously, but also the developer community, because we really wanted this to be a very, very interactive platform where we're just building things away, aping on things, and just basically just being total nerds in terms of like the kinds of stuff that these characters can do in the game, and that's kind of like what we're here for. We're here to enable them to do that. So right now, I think I'm gonna win.
You've been only losing, Chase.
The community gets to suggest how things work. So
say that again, Rick.
We were gonna let the community make decisions or suggestions on how things will in the direction of development. So we need to get that platform. That's the crazy thing. This is a small part of the project. So this is kind of like a side project that one of our devs wanted to take up when he saw the first drafts of how the Arcadians would look. So I just took off and started working on this. So, all we did is, okay, we'll sponsor this. So go ahead and work on it. And this is what he came up with. But this is a small part, I mean, the main body of the OP Games project is OP Arcade. It's a platform where hopefully hundreds of these kinds of games will be live on the platform by the end of next year. And just seeing one game and seeing how fun it is, we'd really love for more developers to pick up not just Arcadians, although the Arcadians are designed as Legos, essentially pieces that you can take and use in your development. But pick up any other NFT in anybody's wallet and make games out of them, and then we put them on our platform and anybody can play them, and then we can monetize them. So.
Yeah, the Arcadians I think is kind of like your pilot game. Kind of lead the way for every developers to kind of take a look at and say what's possible, what can we do.
That's why when people tell me, "Hey, you've got a cool PFP project." Well, okay, you can use the Arcade as a PFP, but it's not really a PFP project. Yeah. That's not the way we did it. It's not like, okay, we have all of these PFPs, and then part of our roadmap is we'll make a game with them later, and then we'll share royalties. We did it the other way around. We've got a platform, and then we said, okay, what would be cool is we make these game pieces that anybody can use to make games with. And then later say, okay, why don't we release it because they look cool? Why don't we release them as avatars, so people can have them? And then finally, they're now going to become the access tokens to the OP Arcade, to the OP Arcade metaverse. Okay, that's an overused term, and I don't like using it, but the project, right? So as long as you've got a few Arcadians in your wallet, you'll be given priority whenever we've got something new to share with the community.
So you talked about kind of the voting mechanics. Will the Arcadians, are they going to be the voters, or is it potential token holders of the platform, or have you guys thought that far ahead? I mean, how are you guys going to determine who's voting?
Well, essentially, everybody who's got Arcadians are essentially the OGs of the project. They're all going to be 10,000. When we hit 10,000, that's it. This is like a series 1 Genesis NFT drop. So if, for example, and I'm not saying that this is not final, but if ever we do release our ERC20 token in the future, if we do a whitelist or an IDO or whatever, if you don't have an Arcadian, you probably don't have a shot at getting a whitelist one. I'll just say that. I'll stop there. All right. So,
Hypothetically.
hypothetically.
All right. Hey, Rob, we need one of those Alpha Leaks symbols to pop up whenever that's not on screen.
Well, that's why I think it was so important. That's why I think it was so important to get into and get one of these assets now. I mean, just look at where the metaverse is. I mean, what the gameplay is going to be like. This is only version 1.2. I mean, you get the asset now. It's just going to go on forever. I mean, you'll have one of the originals. That's why I like that. That's why I just bought two of them.
For every avatar you buy, you're helping fund the future of Web3 gaming. So, it's not for us. We're not keeping it. So, the more the more Arcadians you buy, the more you support blockchain gaming in its earliest stages. It's so early that there's space for everyone to come over and make games.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we're gonna have you guys back here in another couple weeks. We always enjoy having you guys in. You guys are one of the first innovative and active projects right now in the arcade space. We want to have you guys back. Any final closing thoughts? I mean, you're right now at how many did Malachi say are minted now? There's still available mints.
2,800.
I think there's still available mints. You want to get in on this? Could have one of the original. You want one of the original Arcadians to continue in the OP game metaverse. So we'll have you guys back, and we always appreciate you guys coming on in, man. Thank you, Chase, and
thank you guys.
Rick,
We
very much
appreciate
for having.
Thank you guys. Thank you for having us on.
Absolutely.
And we'll see you in New York.
Yes, you're gonna come on to New York, man. That's gonna be super. That's gonna be best. That's gonna be awesome. We're looking forward to seeing you guys there.
Alrighty. Thanks, John. Thanks,
guys.
Rob. You guys have a wonderful day.
Cheers.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.